Ever wished you could just add voice calling to your app,
Yeah.
but without needing to become a telecom expert?
Yeah, totally. It used to be such a headache, Like all that hardware and the protocols, it was a nightmare.
But now there's this thing called voice APIs, right? They're supposed to make it way easier.
Oh, absolutely. Voice APIs are they're game changers, really.
Welcome to the Commio Cast. I'm Tim McLean, Commio's Director of Marketing. Thanks for tuning in. Here we talk about all things cloud communications. Think modern calling and text messaging and more, all in the cloud. In this episode, as always, our hosts Micah and Kali join us from their virtual recording studio at Notebook LM. Guys, take it away.
They give developers all the tools they need to add voice features without needing to dive deep into telecom.
So instead of needing a PhD in telecom, you can just use some code to make your app do voice stuff.
Exactly. It's like having a virtual phone system that you can control programmatically.
Okay, so less like sorcery, more like coding. But I keep hearing about this thing called SIP. How does that fit in?
Right, SIP. That stands for Session Initiation Protocol. And it's pronounced like taking a sip of a drink.
Got it. Not SIP. So
Okay.
What is it exactly?
Well, it's basically the underlying technology that's been used for voice calls forever. Think of it as the language that two devices use to talk to each other and set up a call.
So does the voice API translate that language for us, making it simpler to work with?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. SIP can get super complex, especially if you're not a telecom expert. But a voice API handles all that complexity for you.
So I can just tell the API what I want it to do using code, and it takes care of all this SIP stuff in the background.
Exactly. You got it.
Okay, that makes sense. Our source material actually has this table comparing voice API and SIP side by side. Maybe we can take a look at that.
Sure. One of the biggest things that stands out to me is just how much simpler voice APIs are, especially for, people who aren't telecom experts. Like, for example, voice APIs are fully cloud-based.
So no more mess around with physical servers.
No, not at all. Everything's handled in the cloud. And that also makes it really scalable. You can handle huge call volumes without needing tons of expensive hardware.
That's got to be a dream come true for developers. No more waiting on those telecom engineers to make changes.
Oh, absolutely. And it's so much more agile, too. You can add or modify features with just a few lines of code.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. And I bet it's way more cost effective than traditional telecom setups.
Oh, definitely. Voice APIs usually use a pay-as-you-go model, which is it's much more affordable, especially for startups and smaller businesses.
Okay, I'm starting to see why people are so excited about voice APIs.
Yeah.
But can you walk me through how they actually work? If SIP is still the underlying technology, what's the magic happening behind the scenes?
Okay, so think about it like this. When you make a call on your smartphone, you don't need to know all the details of how the cellular network actually works, right? You just tap a button and the call goes through.
So the voice API is like the user interface on my phone, and SIP is all the complex stuff happening behind the scenes?
Exactly. The voice API acts as a bridge between your code and the SIP world. It takes care of all the technical stuff, sending the right SIP messages, managing the audio streams, all that. You just focus on what you want to happen.
Okay, now I'm getting it. So voice APIs basically make it super easy for developers to add powerful voice features to their apps without needing to become telecom gurus themselves.
And Commio, they're all about making voice communications as developer-friendly as possible. Their whole platform is built around that idea.
Yeah, and one thing that really jumped out at me is their network. They've got this network of 40 carriers. Why is that such a big deal?
So imagine you're making a call from your app to someone across the country, right? With a traditional telecom setup, that call might have to go through a bunch of different carriers to get there.
Adding delays.
Yeah.
And probably affecting the quality, right?
Exactly. Every hop adds delay and can make the call sound worse. But Commio has these direct connections to most of the major carriers. So your calls, they take the express lane.
So no more telecom traffic jams. And that means better call quality for users.
Exactly. And, Commio's motto is the telco experts, so you don't have to be. They take care of all the complicated telecom stuff behind the scenes, so developers can just focus on building great applications.
Having a whole team of telecom experts working for you. I also noticed they offer 24/7 support. That's pretty impressive. Not many tech companies do that.
Yeah, I think that shows how committed they are to their customers. They get that voice communication is really important for a lot of businesses, and they want to be there to help no matter what. They
Mm.
even have a lot of local regulatory expertise, which can be super valuable if you're building apps that need to deal with all those telecom regulations.
So it's not just the platform, it's like having a whole team in your corner ready to help you out. But let's talk about the Commio Voice API itself. What are some of the key features and benefits?
Well, first off, it's incredibly scalable. Like their platform can handle a massive number of calls, so it can grow along with your business. And then there's the range of features they offer, things like call control, interactive voice response, even answering machine detection.
Okay, now you're talking my language.
Yeah.
Tell me more about those features. What can you actually do with them?
Well, with call control, you can basically control how calls flow within your app. Like you can transfer calls between different people or connect multiple people into, like a conference call.
Oh, that's cool. So if I wanted to build an app where like users could easily transfer calls to different departments or team members, I could use call control for that.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's IVR, which is interactive voice response. That's what you usually hear when you call a company and get like a menu of options. Press 1 for sales, 2 for support, that kind of thing.
So those automated phone menus are IVR. I always wondered what technology was behind those.
Yep, that's IVR. And with Commio's Voice API, you can actually build your own custom IVR systems. You can create like dynamic menus that guide callers to the right place.
So I could build an app where users could, I don't know, check their account balance or schedule an appointment, all using their voice.
Exactly. It's like having a virtual assistant on the other end of the line.
That's really cool. Okay, what about answering machine detection? What is that all about?
So answering machine detection, it's pretty clever. It lets your app figure out if a call is being answered by a person or by a machine.
So you can do different things depending on who or what picks up the phone.
Yeah, like let's say you're building an app that sends out appointment reminders. You could have the app leave a detailed message on an answering machine. But if a person answers, you could play a shorter, more conversational message.
I see. So it's all about making the interaction feel more natural and personalized.
Exactly. And speaking of personalization, Commio's billing model is actually really cool too. They use what's called a 66 billing model.
What does that mean?
So basically, calls are billed in 6-second increments.
So no more rounding up to the nearest minute and paying for like airtime you didn't use.
Nope. It's much fairer, and it can save businesses a lot of money. But it's not just about the technology and the pricing. What's really exciting is how companies are actually using Commio's Voice API to improve their customer experience.
Okay, give me some examples. How are companies actually using this stuff?
Well, one thing we're seeing a lot of is companies using Commio's Voice API to add voice calling to their mobile apps and web platforms. So, like, users can make and receive calls right within the app.
Oh, so like you could be in a social media app and you could just call someone right from there without having to switch apps.
Yeah, exactly. It's super convenient. And then you have companies using Commio's IVR capabilities to build like really advanced customer service systems, not just those basic press 1 for this, 2 for that menus.
Like they're building AI-powered systems that can actually understand what you're saying.
Yeah, they can understand natural language, answer questions, even anticipate what a customer might need.
That sounds amazing and kind of scary at the same time. But I guess these AI systems can handle a lot more calls than a human could, right?
And they can be available 24/7.
Exactly. They can free up human agents to focus on more complex issues. And because Commio's Voice API integrates with other systems, like CRM platforms, those AI assistants can actually pull up customer data in real time, so they can provide a really personalized experience.
So it's like having a super smart assistant that knows everything about you. That's kind of wild. But are there any, downsides to voice APIs? Any challenges we should be aware of? Well, like with any technology, there are some things to keep in mind. One challenge is making sure that that the audio quality is good. Voice calls can be sensitive to network conditions. And even with Commio's network, there can be issues sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. Nothing's more frustrating than a choppy call.
Exactly. So it's important to test your app carefully and make sure it works well, even if the network conditions aren't perfect.
So it's not just about the tech itself, but about making sure it actually works in the real world. What about security? Is that a concern with voice APIs?
Oh, absolutely. Security is super important, especially when you're dealing with sensitive information, like personal data or financial details. You have to be really careful to protect that information and make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands.
So things like encryption and strong authentication are really important.
Yeah, for sure. You have to treat those voice conversations like they're happening in a high security vault. And it's not just about protecting data from hackers, it's also about respecting user privacy and making sure that, that you're using their data responsibly.
Yeah, it sounds like security and privacy are really, really important when it comes to voice APIs. It's
Yes.
not just about building cool features, it's also about building them responsibly.
Definitely. I mean, as voice tech becomes, more and more part of our lives, we have to think about the ethical implications and make sure we're using it, in a way that benefits everyone.
Okay, so we've covered what voice APIs are, how they work, why they're important, even some of the potential downsides. But I'm curious to hear your take on the bigger picture. What does all this mean? What's so significant about this whole shift towards voice APIs?
Well, I think what's really interesting is that we're seeing a paradigm shift in how we interact with technology. For so long, we've been stuck with, screens and keyboards, but now voice is becoming this powerful and intuitive way to connect with machines. It's almost like we're tapping into something primal, something inherently human.
For most of human history, voice was our main way of communicating. It makes sense that we want to bring that same ease and naturalness to our interactions with technology.
Exactly. And voice APIs they're really the driving force behind this whole evolution. They're making voice tech accessible to everyone. It's not just big tech companies that can build these amazing voice experiences anymore.
So we're not just talking about adding voice calls to apps. We're
Right.
talking about a future where voice is the interface for everything, like our homes, our cars, our workplaces. It's almost like something out of Star Trek.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I mean, we're already seeing this starting to happen, right? With smart speakers and voice assistants, and as voice APIs continue to evolve, I think we're going to see some even more mind-blowing applications. It's a really cool time to be working in this space.
Okay, I'm sold. I'm officially on board with the voice revolution. But before we get too carried away, dreaming about the future, what's the key takeaway for our listener? What should they be thinking about as they start exploring this world of voice APIs?
I think the most important thing to remember is that voice APIs are enabling a whole new wave of innovation. They're making it possible for anyone, not just big companies, to create amazing things with voice. So if you've ever thought about, adding voice capabilities to your project or your business, now is the time to jump in.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a whole universe of possibilities out there just waiting to be discovered. And if our listener is looking for a partner to help them navigate this new frontier, Commio seems like a pretty good choice.
Yeah, I would agree with that. They've got a really developer-friendly approach. Their network is top-notch, and they're really committed to supporting their customers. They're definitely one of the leaders in the voice API space.
So if you're ready to dive into the world of voice tech, Commio is worth checking out.
Absolutely.
Building amazing experiences that engage and delight your customers is easy with Commio. Our smart, reliable voice and messaging solutions are easy to implement and scale with you so you can deliver more calls and texts, be more competitive, and save money. With Commio, you get peace of mind and happier customers. Find out why thousands of software platforms and enterprises trust Commio with their communications. Get a demo today.